No.
Oh.
Okay, should we move on to approval of the minutes?
Make a motion.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Items of business, chief's report.
Okay, for the month of June, had 12 reports. Nothing real extravagant, other than we did have an aggravated assault in which the victim was punched in the eye, which broke the bones in the orbital here.
Oh.
That required surgery. So a report was made and sent to the prosecutor's office and waiting for their review to see if they'll issue a warrant on the suspect. The 3 city zoning violations, 2 were for driveways that happened to put in another entrance to their existing driveway, which is prohibited. So 2 of those residents got letters for that. And the third one is the 229 West Grand River, about him having to get his stuff off that property because there is no residence there. So I talked to him a week and a half ago. I said I'd give him a little time, but his little time was starting to run out. So we'll start tagging vehicles and start going from there. There were 79 traffic stops. 33 tickets issued out of those 79 traffic stops. Of course, the big winner is speed again. And one subject decided to drive with improper registration, so he will have a court date. 46 traffic warnings. Shocker, the big one again is speed.
What do we do to slow people down?
I don't know. You know, there's zillions of signs up, so the only way we're getting their attention is by tickets. When it costs them $105 for going 5 over, that's what we usually rate them for. That usually tendency to bring home the message. But other than that, how many signs can you put up? We got a zillion on Doyle and they still speed down Doyle.
You're right for 5 over. How many people are actually doing 5 over?
Very few. We don't usually stop them until they're doing 15 over. And then we write them for the 5 over. So
what does the ticket cost for 15 over?
it depends. Right now it's 105. It might be 125, 130. There's not that much difference.
But the point spread is probably.
Point spreads is a little higher. Yeah. 1 to 5 over is 1 point, 10 over is 2 points, 15 over is 3 points.
Might throw a couple of those in once in a while and
Yeah.
so let people roll the dice.
So zoning violations, of course, 2 for tall grass. It's amazing, you gotta tell people to mow the grass. 2 abandoned vehicles and 2 illegal burnings. People burning stuff they're not supposed to be burning. So we talked to them. We did have the department required firearms training for MPOs. We'll have 1 more shoot, which is probably going to be September or October for the officers to qualify, because there's a couple of them that didn't make the training. Myself and my brother did go to the GM battery electric vehicle first responder training. That's a mouthful.
That'll be an interesting thing.
It was interesting, actually. It was a 4-hour class down at Oakland Community College.
You got to use special equipment to fight the fire on an EV.
Nope, just copious amounts of water or let it burn. That's kind of what it boils down to.
Hot dogs and marshmallows.
And they, you know, they did show us some of the battery packs where one fire agency actually pried into. I'm surprised they're still alive, because there's a lot of power in those things. And said leave those alone. So it was actually a very interesting class. And then we also, myself and Mark Smith, went to the Owasso Township Fire Department and trained their department on active shooters. A lot of their guys weren't able to go to the previous training. So we kind of talked to them about that.
Yeah, I know I talked about this last month, I think it was. But we keep pointing fingers at guns as the culprit. And it's actually mental health. Every time you look at an active shooter, it goes back to mental health. You know, the guy that drove the car through the parade, mental health, you know, Timothy McVeigh. You know, you go on and on. It doesn't matter whether they used a gun, a car, a knife, a box cutter, or whatever it is. They all had some kind of issue going on. Is there anything we can do as a city to help if we have somebody that's suffering or needs help? Is there anything we can do? Because the state isn't stepping up.
Right, and the biggest problem though is capacity for the people to be accepted. If I take somebody over to say Owasso for a stress evaluation, they go in there and a lot of times, unfortunately, it depends on if they have insurance or not. If they don't have insurance and they don't believe they're a threat to society or themselves, they kick them loose. If they have insurance, they may keep them. And
But
unfortunately,
if you take them in, there's a record you took them in.
correct.
And if you took them in and there's a record and they do a background search, hopefully they won't go buy a gun.
That may not be true because they haven't actually
This is the police committee.
found
You
a.
can come sit, but
Council doesn't start till 7.
Yeah, that hasn't been put into the system because they haven't had a court meeting or gone to court on it. So until they actually go to court for mental instability, they won't show up on their record.
Well, and too, a lot of cases, you look at, people don't know they got mental health issues.
Yeah.
Until there is a incident.
Mhm.
And by that point, it's kind of too late. And then they're,
A lot of these people have run-ins 2 or 3 times prior to a big event. A lot of times there's, you know, family members know that there's something going on and they have no recourse. They have nowhere to turn to. If you call the crisis center at community mental health, you get a recording.
well, we
And
do
they tell you
have,
to take them to a hospital. You take them to the hospital and they don't know what to do with them because they can't find a bed. They can't find a place for them. Yeah.
there is a licensed therapist in town looking to open something here. She's just trying to figure out how and what, and if people would need it or use it.
Well, I
Just in
don't know how
some
often
way.
Dan runs across somebody that would need it.
I run across people daily.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well, and a lot of
I
people,
mean, I'm not
they
being
don't think they have a
sarcastic,
problem.
really.
what's that?
A lot of people don't think they have a problem.
Mhm.
A lot of
Yeah,
people
I-
that are on medication, hey, I'm feeling great, so then they stop taking the medication and then they have the problem again.
Yeah, I'm real
Um,
familiar with
and-
that. It's like,
Yeah, and
and I
the big
think,
thing too is, again, finding beds for one or to keep them off the streets. And a lot of times, that's not happening.
it's like your area, MSU, they've got a crisis hotline to handle stress and all this other stuff. We had an employee that called it, went off his rocker or whatever it were. The MSU Police Department showed up, escorted him out. They took him to Grand Rapids, dumped him off, and he proceeded to tell them what his problem was. They kept him a shorter time frame than what they originally wanted him to go in as.
my
you know,
main
for it,
reason
but-
for bringing this up is if we have a person that is experiencing kind of mental health issue, I think it might be better for the city to take them to the hospital and cover ourselves and not open ourselves to liability because we did nothing.
Oh, we do,
They do.
you know, but part of the
I've
problem
witnessed
is,
it.
as a police agency, in order for me to take somebody into protective custody, I have to show that either they're a danger to themselves or to the public. And those are the only 2 things that I can take somebody in and petition them to get medical treatment.
Okay. Is there anything that you can do as far as reports that if you encounter somebody and you can't take them in, but you suspect that there is issues?
Yeah, we would do a report on it. and say, we've had contact with this person, however, we don't have anything to substantiate
Yeah,
that at this point that this is gonna happen.
that's kind of the case with the kid down in Texas that just shot up that school. They had a couple of encounters with him, but nothing that he was threatening anybody or himself.
And so there's a fine line between, violating somebody's constitutional rights and trying to see that they get mental health. And that's the same thing as what some of these states that have that red law or whatever they call it about going in and getting somebody's guns. Bad idea. And hopefully Michigan never adopts that, because that's real bad when now you're forced in a position where you're looking for a gunfight, because now you're gonna go take away somebody's guns that may or may not be justified. That's gonna get more people hurt.
And then slightly different, if they take somebody in, maybe they seem like they're in danger themselves, so they put them into like the chamber in the hospital or whatever to help them. Maybe they're on drugs or something. The people aren't gonna see it as a help. They're gonna see it as the cops came and took me. You know what I mean? Which I have also experienced with somebody in town, so. There's a lot of times where you wanna help them, but it's really, they have to know if they need it too.
Yeah, so there's a fine line between, you gotta have those two instances, or otherwise it doesn't fly. And sometimes, we would have to really dictate why we're taking somebody into protective custody. Otherwise, again, then we get sued again.
Okay, so I bring it up.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it'd be a different story if Shiawassee County themselves had a helpline. Like versus your big cities, they have them.
Like I said, most times,
Shiawassee County don't have it.
well, they have community mental health on there also,
Right.
but you get the same thing. If you call a crisis line, you get a recording and you get nowhere. If you're trying to actually talk and speak to a person that can help you, you're not gonna get it through the helpline. It's just not gonna be there. The crisis line doesn't work.
Nope. The other thing that's coming up is movies in the park, and we'll have an officer working every night. That's transpiring. So,
Fantastic.
even though some nights will go longer than others, depending on the daylight.
One other unpopular thing to bring up is fireworks. Saturday night was absolutely ridiculous. Fireworks were going off in town until 3 o'clock in the morning. And they weren't the big pretty ones, they were just allowed, the big loud ones. What can you do about that? I know at this point you don't have an address or a name.
Well, I do have an address now, but it's
Okay.
over here, not so much over by your house.
Well, that's pretty much where it was.
I mean,
I've got an address and I've got to go talk to them, but today another situation came up that I'm still
Yeah, so
dealing
you were
with.
busy.
But I do have an address now and I will speak to them, but somebody had also posted our ordinance on the website. Well, that is an old ordinance because state law changed. We gotta go with what state law is. So they can do the firecrackers and the M80s, but you can't do commercial grade.
Which they did
fireworks.
do that. They did that on Saturday night.
Saturday night.
They started out with
was
that.
Going off. It started at 9 o'clock at night. And the last one I remember hearing was 3 in the morning.
So, at your house, you're hearing something that's hidden from up here?
oh no, it's-
So it's
didn't go
different.
out
It's
all
a
night.
different
It's on Crum
situation.
Yeah,
But it's a different situation
Yeah.
than we're hearing about if that's. if
Right,
he's-
yeah. I
There's
guess
no
that's a
way.
different one.
You had a couple of, you
the
had a
one at
couple of them
Crum
going
Street
off.
does the fountain and the big loud.
yeah, this
big loud
wasn't
one.
any fault. This
No.
was the loud boom and the flash. And that was
So
it.
he's got somebody else then too.
I mean, they
Yeah.
do it right in the center of Crum Street.
Well, somebody was trying to tell me they think they're over on Phelps Street. And I'm like, possibly.
I mean, I have.
But there look
fireworks
like
in my
Crum
back
will
porch,
go
I
there
know
too.
So you don't know who it is.
Yeah,
You do. You don't want to
I
say.
can discuss it with them,
That's perfect.
yeah.
Because I was,
I mean,
it's
I have
like,
the fireworks hit my roof and fall on my back porch. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, You know, you kind of worry about that stuff, you know,
Well,
falling
so
down and
dry out
starting
there.
a fire. I mean, yeah, it is dry.
Well,
If we had a commercial fireworks show, we'd have the fire department sitting out there
Mhm.
waiting and,
Absolutely.
you know, watching for a half hour after as a fire watch.
When I was a little kid, we used to soak our lawn all day and then we'd go shoot them off in the cement pad in the middle of all the wet stuff. Just because we were,
That's not being done here, so. All right,
Yep, so unfortunately, it's a topic every year.
Mhm.
But we have, police officers usually working weekends.
Sometimes, sometimes not. It depends.
and we don't really post when not because, well, we don't want people to know.
Right.
Well, I'm sure they already know that's why they did what they did. So
Could be.
I'm sure they check, they look, see if there's a car out here or whatever.
I know there's enough people screaming. I mean, they kept most of the town awake very late at night. It's really a good thing it wasn't a Sunday night because people had to work.
I'll wait for that.
You know, some people did have to work Saturday morning after, or Sunday morning after no sleep.
Next time it happens, I'm going for a ride.
I just think it's very inconsiderate something to do
I
that.
was waiting for you too.
They were lucky on Saturday night.
I texted him.
Okay. We done with that topic?
That's me.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to others. I think we covered others unless somebody's got something to add.
Nope.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done, Cassie.
You guys hear we're done? I'll get them.
Okay. Here comes the door. I think maybe.
They got it. We're done.
It just takes a while to fix, so we keep going.